So this is useful to take a look at. Again, it's a little bit more in the computational sciences, but more journals are starting to have an eye towards this. And especially with the NIH. The NIH now, in anything over, I think it's $500,000 funding, you have to have a statement in your proposal that describes what your data sharing policy is going to be. You actually have to be able to have something in place to be able to share your data and what you did. I'm going to show you guys a couple of books here in a second, but Victoria Stodden is another person that has written a lot on this, and there's some links here, and she talks about different kinds, like why should we do this, correctness of your results, and enabling other people to use our methods. And I'm a big champion of this, if for no other reason than I really want to find somebody else that's done the analysis that I'm trying to do, borrow their code, so I'm not starting from scratch. And we laugh about that, right? I mean, but at the same time, we need to be as efficient as possible to really kind of continue to move research and science forward, and we don't want to have to keep reinventing the same wheel over and over. And so she has some information here on the principles and the different kinds of reproducible research. I'm not going to go into all of this, but I encourage you to take a look. All right, I'm going to take my headset off here for just a second. Show you guys a couple books, and you're welcome to pass these around. So this book here is on implementing reproducible research. This has a lot of case studies in it. This isn't just R, this has all kinds of stuff in it. And it's written by Victoria Stodden, Roger Ping, and I'm going to talk about Roger Leitch here in a minute. But this is a really good book to take a look at. There's a case study in here I'm going to mention in just a sec. This book by Christopher Gandrad is also really good. This gets you into a lot of what I'll be doing in the workshops this fall. Working in this environment to literally go from code plus data plus text to final report. And it's all in one place. So he has a lot of good information in here on that. And then UEG, who's really a cool guy, he's the one that basically created the knitter package. And while I'm not going to explicitly take you guys through knitter today, I'm going to talk more about it probably in a workshop too. But what you'll be doing today is actually using the power of knitter under the hood. It's just I'm not going to have you guys call explicit functions. It's kind of built in now in RStudio. And both of these two books are now in their second edition, and I don't think they've done second edition on this one yet. So you guys are welcome to take a look at these, pass them around. Apologize. I know I've got little pieces of paper stuck in there. If it falls out, it'll be fine. I'm always reading and writing and thinking of things and bookmarking pages. So, all right. So take a look at those. Those are some good books. Okay, so dynamic documentation. So really, truly, the piece of what we're focusing on here today is what I think of as dynamic documentation, where it's not just that you have code and output and you're cutting and pasting that into a document, but it's all together in one place. So if the data changes or if the code changes, all you have to do is recompile your document. I can't tell you, and I'm not there yet. I'm trying to get there, but I still do a lot of my day-to-day analyses supporting research projects in SPSS. So I'm still taking SPSS output or sometimes SAS output and cutting and pasting into a final report. Or I'm sitting there with a printout of the results and manually creating the tables that I need for publication. So believe me, I understand. And then I get the call from the PI going, I just added 5 more people. Can we do this again? Sure. It'll take me an hour to rerun the code and 2 days to reformat the results. So how many of you have had that pain? Really? Not more of you? Okay. But the goal here is to get to where we will never have to do cut and paste ever. And I'm going to have to check something. Oh, man. Hold on. Let me think for just a second. All right. I may have to switch over to the big computer here in just a second. Okay. So this kind of started back in the 80s, really, by a guy named Donald Knuth, and he talked about literate programming. The idea is instead of instructing a computer what to do, let's concentrate on explaining to human beings what we want the computer to do. So the idea was that we weren't just talking to the computer, we were actually talking to the human beings interacting with the computer. And talked about dynamic. There's a link here for R Markdown. So a lot of what we're doing today under the hood is, let's see, where's my original link? You're really truly using R Markdown, and this now has become almost the de facto language of writing these documents inside of RStudio. And so this is really where we'll get to at the end of today. So I encourage you to go, and it's just rmarkdown.rstudio.com. And they have lots of good examples and information here. This is just a thing, so I'm showing you guys how to go to HTML and Word, but you can use, you can make presentations with this. At the moment, they have not added a module to go direct to PowerPoint, but that uses these HTML5 slides, Beamer. If you've ever been to any sort of more math stat technical conferences or presentations by biostatisticians, a lot of them are probably using this. Any of you guys ever heard of Edward Tufte? A few. He's a guy that's really famous about basically the best way to optimize your graphics. He's sort of world renowned anyway, but he has these Tufte style way of presenting results, so they've emulated some of that here. You can write whole books using this. There's a lot of stuff going on right now with applications and developing these informatic type dashboards. Shiny is a specific application that you can run using R, but they're using that now to build all of these online applications, articles, websites, and so forth. So I encourage you to kind of flip through the gallery just to see some of the different options that are here, creating different interactive objects, dashboards, like here's an example of one. This was made with something called HTML widget, so you can actually create these things and have it where people can interact with your data, you know, get information. This is just a simple chloropleth map. This is like a little sort of categorical summary, and you can see it's all sort of hyperlinked together. And you can do this inside RStudio. Presentations, these are just different kinds of slides. I'm going to show you guys specifically some stuff about books. There's a bunch of different books now being written using this infrastructure. Websites. I was so excited when I found out about this because I am horrible at I hate starting from scratch making websites, so I'm starting to use this for my websites. There's now templates. So we'll see how fast we go today. I might show you guys some of this at the very end, but just to give you an example, this is the Journal of Statistical Software. Let's see, I'll just bring it up real quick. Try it again. So this is one, and they sort of jumped on board. So if you grab one of these articles and look at them, the nice thing is they actually have the R code and everything. So this is designed to be a little bit like the Journal of Biostatistics. But when you look at their paper, so just like it looks here, like it would look in the final published, when you're inside R Markdown, you can actually say, I want to create a new document from the Journal of Statistics software template, and you sit there inside RStudio, you get your code, you start writing, you put all the pieces together, and when you click the button at the end, you get a PDF that looks just like it's going to look. And by the way, Elsevier is jumped on this bandwagon, so I think eventually you're going to start seeing more of the Elsevier journals adapting this template type format moving forward. All right. And then I mentioned that book that's coming around. Frederick Leich was a gentleman that originally created a language called Sweave. Has anybody in here ever seen SAS Sweave? Probably not. The idea was that you were weaving the code and the documentation together. And so he created originally Sweave, and obviously weaving, right? Then UEG came along. I don't know exactly when he started this. I'm going to guess about 5 years ago, and created Knitter. Same idea. You're knitting. So instead of weaving, we're knitting. Textile reference, right? Code and documentation together. And by and large, you can do either one, but I think most everybody's kind of moved to knit, to the Knitter package as opposed to using Sweave. But in theory, you can still use both. So we're focusing more on Knitter. All right. Give me just 1 second, because I want you guys to see this video. And you won't be able to hear it. So let me set it up on this. Come on. All right. So take a minute, catch your breath. By the way, and I didn't mention this at the beginning, if you need to take just a minute break, if you come out this door, instead of don't walk all the way out, take the first, not this hall, but the next hall, take a right and a right, and both the restrooms are right there. So it'll take just a minute, and because there's a video I really want to show you guys. All right, so while that's loading, I'll give that a second to come back. So I've got to let it finish. Couple of other things to note while we're waiting for that to load. I mentioned GitHub. Have any of you guys ever heard of Git? A couple? How about subversion control? How about just version control? So when somebody sends you a document and you're like, oh, sure, I'll add my comments and send it back, you probably rename the file, change the date, type V2, V5, whatever, and then you email it back, right? It's not horrible, but it's not the most efficient way to do it. And imagine you're trying to do that with multiple collaborators across the globe. And how many of you have ever done this? You've been working really, really hard on something, and then you got to put it down, study for an exam, get that paper out, and then you're like, oh yeah, I need to go back to that project. So you come back, and it's, let's say, a month later, and you're sitting there looking at it going, why did I do this? Or what was I thinking? So the joke I've heard is you need version control and tracking and documentation because you need to be able to communicate that to a stranger in the future, you know, yourself in 2 to 3 weeks when you've forgotten what you did and why. And so this gives you ability to sort of track changes. You can roll things back. I did want to mention this one article because this blew me away. There was the whole idea of being able to collaborate with people in real time. There was this, and I don't know what this is, but it's a Shiga toxin producing E. coli. Anybody in here even know what that means? I mean, I kind of know what E. coli is, but the rest of it, not so much. But basically, they had this outbreak, and so they started pulling it together. They started the gene sequencing, and they started trying to get a bunch of smart people on it so that they could get something back out to treat people. And so they released it into the public domain under what's called a Creative Commons license. They had a burst of crowdsourced, curiosity-driven analyses, bioinformaticians. There were people on 4 continents working on this. And within 24 hours after releasing the genome, they had assembled it. 2 days later, they had assigned an existing sequence type, and then 5 days later, they designed and released a strain-specific diagnostic sequence. That just was so amazing to me. So, and that complete case story is actually at the back of that Victoria Stodden book that's going around. If you're interested in reading more about it, the article, I've got a link here, and then the original GitHub wiki site that they use to collaborate is still out there in the domain, and you can actually see by date what people are doing. So it's really interesting. All right, so let me go back here real quick. I'm going to open this up, but I'm not going to run it here. Okay, let me pull it up here. And I don't want to sign into Chrome. Okay. So, all right. www.youtube.com. All right. Reproducible. All right, we're going to see if this will play. You won't be able to hear it, and I don't have my sound hooked up, so I'm hoping we'll have sound. Let's see what happens.